So our topic today is to find out fixed overhead variance. So fixed overhead variance formula is, here it is actual fixed overhead budgeted fixed overhead fixed overhead applied. So this is a new concept you are learning. I'll explain you what is this applied overhead. Okay. So the difference between actual fixed overhead and budgeted fixed overhead is nothing but the budget variance. So like we kind of budget or we plan that we are going to spend some X amount for like into our business, okay, and we check in actuality how much we are spending. Difference between these two will give you budget variance. Now formula for budget variance: actual fixed overhead minus budgeted fixed overhead. Okay, so just make a note of this. So if you have made a note of this, I'll go for another formula. Shall I move forward? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shall I go for another formula?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. So again, I'm writing the same thing. Actual fixed overhead budgeted fixed overhead fixed overhead applied. So here, before going to the another concept, I will give you some details about fixed overhead applied. Okay, so make a note of this. So what is this fixed overhead applied? See, you know, when you like manufacture some product, there are some indirect cost you incur. Okay, so some of like the indirect cost like can be in the form of manufacturing indirect costs, which are called manufacturing overheads, and there can be some administrative indirect costs. Okay, those we are not speaking about, we are not discussing about them. So indirect costs are a part of manufacturing overhead. Okay, so this in manufacturing overhead is nothing but we use this term for indirect expenses. Fine. So now the question is, what is applied manufacturing overhead? So what is applied manufacturing overhead? What is this? So applied manufacturing overhead signifies, I'm writing this point, applied manufacturing overhead signifies manufacturing overhead expenses that have been applied to units of a product during a specific period. See, manufacturing overhead, you should know or understand that overheads are not per unit wise. You should understand, like when I speak about price or rate, okay, or raw material, you will be getting per unit cost of that. But overheads are always total amounts because these are of fixed nature. Overheads, see, overheads are of variable nature as well as fixed nature. But here, since we are speaking about fixed overheads, they are fixed nature ones. Okay, they are of fixed nature. So when you have fixed nature overheads, and those overheads cannot be cannot be what we say found out per unit wise, because see, overheads are common for the entire organization, correct? Those are not specific ones for some particular task. So manufacturing overheads are indirect manufacturing expenses. So when a factory's security guard, he gives security, he gives the security to the entire factory, okay, whereby different processes happen. So to find out the overhead per unit wise, what you have to do, you have to divide this with a base. You have to divide this with a base. Okay. So then we call it as predetermined overhead rate. Predetermined overhead rate. So this predetermined overhead rate is nothing but we take either machine hours or we take labor hours. These two we take as a base and try to find out per unit wise how much overhead we are incurring per unit. Okay, so that's what the concept is all about. So predetermined overhead is nothing but, since you know per unit wise you don't have manufacturing overheads, to find out the manufacturing overheads per unit wise, you have to divide that with a base, and that base can be either machine hours or labor hours. Okay, now, so that is called the predetermined overhead. For example, you have like 5 lakh as your overhead costs, and the labor hours, direct labor hours, that means laborers are working for 1 lakh hours in a year. Okay, so predetermined overhead rate is how much? 5 lakhs divided by 1 lakh hours, so it is $5 per labor hour. So in this way you are converting your manufacturing overheads to what, the total amount of manufacturing overheads has been converted to per unit wise rate. Okay, so that is what it is. So please make a note of this. So why are you finding this per unit wise? See, if you do job costing, so when you do job costing, you have to make a job cost sheet. So in that, again, you have to write per unit wise how much you are incurring the cost to make a particular product under the job work. Okay, so suppose you are taking a job work to manufacture biscuits. So the Britannia company has given you the contract. So you will try to find out per unit, one packet of biscuit is costing you how much. In that you want per unit wise overhead rate, overheads. Okay, you want per labor hour how much dollars you are spending, per labor hour how much overheads you are incurring, or per machine hour if the machine is working for some hours in a year, so per machine hour how much you are incurring. So that would be an important input to find out per unit cost of a packet. Okay, so hopefully I think you have understood what is this applied overhead. Hello. So applied overhead is nothing but for a specific task, how much per unit wise overhead you are incurring. That is your applied overhead. Okay. So base can be taken as machine hours or labor hours. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so now we would again go to the like previous this thing and write on the formula. Now the things become very simple and easy for you. So here we will take denominator r's. The denominator r's is nothing but the base which you are taking to find out your predetermined overhead rate. That can be machine hours or labor hours, okay? Into fixed predetermined overhead rate. And this is standard hours. See, denominator hours is nothing but what you are taking as a base. Standard hours is nothing but what you have fixed. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So like what happens is you will be fixing a standard hour and you will be fixing what we say you'll be having some standard hours. Those are called budgeted hours, and you will be estimating how many hours you want to make a particular product, and that will be taking as a base to find out your overhead rate. That will give you the predetermined overhead rate, and applied overheads we will be getting now. So that with the help of a question you can easily understand. So standard hours into fixed predetermined overhead rate. Okay, so when we see the difference in this, we get volume variance. So this volume variance is nothing but fixed predetermined overhead rate taken common, denominator hours minus standard hours. Okay, so this I will write this. This is fixed like predetermined overhead rate. This is denominator hours. This is standard hours for actual output. Right now. So volume variance is equal to budgeted fixed overhead minus fixed overhead applied to work in progress. So now let's take a question and understand. So Cola company production and machine hour data. Budgeted production 30,000 units. Standard machine hours per unit 3 hours. So budgeted machine hours will be 90,000 hours. Those are planned ones. So your budgeted machine hours are nothing but the number of hours you want to work. Okay. Actual production. $28,000 units. Now see, this is a terminology I am using. Standard machine hours for actual production. So per unit standard hours is 3 hours. Standard machine hours for actual production. To produce 28,000 units, you are incurring, like, how many standard hours you are taking. So that will be 28,000 into 3, 84,000. So you should understand this. This is you budgeted. This we will be taking as a base to find out our predetermined overhead rate. This will be applied overheads. What will be calling this? What will be calling this? Applied overhead. Okay. So we will be taking this as our base, and standard machine hours for actual production. So standard hours for actual production is this. So 28,000 is the actual production which has happened, and standard hours is this. So standard like hours for actual production you incurred is this, and actual machine hours is 88,000 hours. Just a second. Hello. So this is 88,000 hours. Now one more data is there. So cola company cost data. So budgeted variable manufacturing overhead $90,000. Budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead $270,000. $360,000. Now actual variable manufacturing overhead 1 lakh. Actual fixed manufacturing overhead 2,80,000. Total actual manufacturing overhead 3,80,000. Okay. So this is the data, budgeted data and actual data. This is the data regarding overheads. That was the data regarding hours. Okay. Now we are supposed to find what we are supposed to find. First and foremost, actual fixed budgeted variance. We are supposed to find budget variance. Okay. So if you have made a note of this, I'll move forward. So as per our chart, what is the actual fixed manufacturing overhead? 2,80,000, correct? What is the budgeted? What is the, sorry, this is not variable, this is fixed. What is the budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead? 2,70,000. What is the budget variance? 10,000. Okay. So in the chart, I am putting these figures. So 2,80,000 is the actual fixed manufacturing overhead, and this is the budgeted one. So I'll put in the chart. One first variance is done. So actual fixed manufacturing overhead is 2,80,000, and budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead is 2,70,000. Your budget variance is 10,000. So you have budgeted this much as your expense, but you incurred this much. So you incurred more. It is unfavorable. Okay, done. So finish this. We'll go for the next one. So let's do this. Now what we'll do is we'll find out the fixed predetermined overhead rate. Okay. So from the question, you can see that the actual fixed manufacturing overhead is how much? So I'm writing predetermined overhead rate is equal to estimated total manufacturing overhead cost whole divided by estimated total amount of the allocation base. So what is the estimated total manufacturing overhead cost given the question? That is total budgeted manufacturing overheads, 3,60,000 whole divided by estimated total amount of the allocation base. Total amount or total hours. So how many hours we have budgeted? 90,000. So what is the predetermined overhead rate? 4. Okay, it is $4 per machine hour. So we estimated 90,000 hours. We estimated this much as the overhead cost. So we got the predetermined overhead rate. Okay. So just make a note of this. We'll put this in the formula. So this is predetermined overhead rate. But when you see our formula, we require fixed predetermined overhead rate, not POHR. We don't want POHR. We want FPOHR. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to see in the question the variable and the fixed elements. So now the next point comes is, see this $4, what you got is POHR, predetermined overhead rate. That means overheads can be variable and can also be fixed. We want only the fixed element right now. Okay, so we will just find out this. How to find out? Let's go ahead. See, when you see your question, this is the variable element and this is the fixed element, correct? So I will take 90,000, which is the budgeted estimated variable manufacturing cost divided by 90,000 budgeted hours. I get $1 per machine hour. This is variable manufacturing overhead rate. Okay, variable manufacturing predetermined overhead rate. Now I want fixed. So fixed element is 2,70,000 in the question given, correct? 2,70,000. So I'll take this 2,70,000 divided by 90,000 budget hours. So how much I'll get? $3. So this is fixed predetermined overhead rate. Okay. Just make a note of this. Finished till here? Hello? Hello, have you finished? Okay, okay. No problem. Now what you have to do is just go to the formula and you just put the things. So denominator ours is 90,000. Fixed predetermined overhead rate is 3. Standard hours is how much in the question? Standard hours for actual output. It's like 84,000 into 3. Now 3 is common, 90,000 minus 84,000. So 3 into 6,000. So your variance is 18,000. Okay, just make a note of this. So standard hours, that means standard hours for actual output into fixed predetermined overhead rate. That means the rate which you have found out related to overheads, like per unit how much you are incurring. That means per machine hour how much you are incurring. When you multiply these two, you get fixed overhead applied. Okay, this is what you budgeted, but that is applied. Okay. Finish. This is all about the overhead variances. Fixed variable we have already finished. Fixed we have done today. We are done with this chapter. Now the only thing which is left over is like you have to solve questions from your Hawk textbook. Okay, and I am going to start long-term capital management from tomorrow. So be ready for the class tomorrow. Thank you.